Welcome to the Moon Baby Magic podcast, a space to honor women's rites of passage stories. From menarche to menopause, the initiations of womanhood all live within our wombs. Through our first bleed to our last, we come to know ourselves more deeply. This is a platform to reclaim the sacredness of all of it. I'm your host, Elliot, birth keeper and women's coach, specializing in womb wellness and hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling? Let's dive in. Hey y'all, welcome back to Moon Baby Magic. Today I am recording this intro the day before this episode will release on Tuesday, September 2nd. It's 4:33 p.m. here in California, and I'm sitting underneath this beautiful oak tree on day 16 of my cycle. Just inviting you to presence yourself to where you are in time and space, and also within your body in this moment as well, providing some context to your experience. Today, I sent a selfie to some of my girlfriends and they were like, wow, you're so glowing and tan. And I was like, yes, I'm ovulating. And so maybe you're like, I'm on day 26 and I'm not glowy. And I will tell you that's okay. Remind yourself that you are a cyclical being and you are not going to be the same every day, every week. You are constantly changing and moving through this beautiful medicine wheel that is your cycle. And I hope that you can find compassion for and learn to love every single woman that you get to meet along the path. It's been my journey of a lifetime. I am in the final stages of finishing up this course for you all. I almost was going to reveal the name, but I'm still like kind of tweaking it a little. So I'm not going to reveal the name, but it's a self-paced course. It is everything about how to heal your cycle naturally. So if you're someone who's been dealing with chronic period pain, with intense PMS symptoms, hello, I've been you. I used to feel like a psycho in my luteal phase. Now I feel actually quite a sense of deep peace, which is actually the design. I'm always here to remind you that your symptoms are common but not normal, and you deserve to live without them. So this course is designed to heal the root cause of most common cycle imbalances, as well as connect you deeply with your womb and with the knowledge that you should have received as a girl but didn't. At least most of us didn't. So you'll hear in today's episode with Yvonne, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but Yvonne's from the Netherlands, and I don't know if the education is necessarily super robust there, but in the episode, Yvonne starts telling us about how she practiced putting in a tampon before she got her first bleed, and her house was always very open about it. And so, yeah, just knowing that some cultures are getting that down. And she shared too about how her kids will want to like put the pad in her underwear for her now. She's super open with them. So that's really the mission here. You know, my mission with this podcast and with all the work I do is to bring women home to their bodies and home to each other, because that is the design, that we're connected to our bodies and in sisterhood with one another. So thank you to everyone here who supports my mission. Thank you so much for being here. If you're excited for the course, I am too. It should be out next week along with a solo podcast episode. And if there's anything you want me to touch on this podcast as I get into solo episodes, yesterday I put a poll up on Instagram. It won't be up, obviously, by the time that you listen to this, but if you ever have an idea you want to talk about, some things I'm thinking about are a complete guide to yoni steaming, what's PMS and what's normal cyclical changes, a breakdown on simplifying your nourishment, and maybe even an episode on coffee. It was on my newsletter last week where I broke down why coffee actually can be beneficial and when you should stop. So if you're not on my newsletter, you can find the link to that in the bio. You can find the link to my Instagram in the bio. You can find the link to my herbal shop, which is still 50% off. Now, it's not 50% off because something is wrong. It's just that in the spirit of this month, as we're going into fall, and actually I've started to read all this astrology stuff, and I guess we're really in an astrological time. We're coming up on these eclipses where the theme is to let go. You know, we've had the time for expansion, and now it's the time for like paring down, simplifying, getting clear. And I am simplifying so much. My energy is going into this podcast, my beautiful one-on-one practice with my clients, and the course that I'm creating. And so the herbal shop is going to be taken down soon, and that's why it's 50% off. So you can find all the links in the bio, including the link to work one-on-one with me. And yeah, let's get into Yvonne's episode. So today on the podcast, we have an episode with a truly inspirational woman, Yvonne Stoop. Yvonne is a mother of three and an ecstatic birth mentor. Originally from the Netherlands, Yvonne grew up in an environment where being open about menstruation and sexuality was the norm, which is a stark contrast to the very conservative culture she now resides in Dubai. In this giggly-Follicular phase conversation between Yvonne and I, we dive into everything from her first bleed to meeting her husband at just 17 years old and her non-conventional path to healing Candida. P.S. You'll hear why cutting out sugar didn't actually work for her. You'll hear Yvonne's vulnerable and beautiful transformation from really grieving her free-spirited and travel-obsessed, relatable maiden years at the beginning of her first pregnancy, all the way to her third ecstatic free birth. So tune into this conversation to get the answer to the question everyone is asking: is it really possible to have an orgasmic birth? All right. Hey, Yvonne, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. And yeah, before we hit record, I was sharing that it's just really fun for me to have women on the podcast who I don't know that much about, because I can just let my curiosity flow and get to know you and your story and where you've been. And yeah, I've enjoyed getting to know you the little bit that we did before hitting record, and just really excited to have you here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here, and I think we're both a bit giggly, but I'm
Yeah,
sure that will be good to hear on the podcast.
fun. I often like to think that it's like this, almost like you're sitting around having a cup of tea or coffee with your girlfriends, listening to the podcast. It can be like that kind of energy. And yeah, I'm in my inner spring maiden follicular phase, and I would love for you to share what phase of your cycle and what phase of your life you're in as well.
Yeah, so I'm on my 12th day of my cycle.
Mm.
And so I believe, because I have never really tracked it as what you do. So it was like when I was coming onto the podcast, I was like, I need to count my days. So I'm on my 12th day, and so I believe it's also
Yeah.
follicular phase. Yeah. So probably that's why we're both giggly.
Yes.
And yeah, and so at the moment I'm a mom of three. I have
Mm,
an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old.
mm. Wow. Amazing. Yeah, the follicular phase of the cycle is like, the maiden energy is very silly and giggly and fun and flirty. Like that's just her vibe. I was feeling this morning like I was trying to sit down and do all of my spiritual practices that I like to do. I like to pray and meditate and journal and sip my cacao. And it was just so hard to focus because it's like the estrogen is rising in your body and your focus is just in so many different places. It's hard to just like hone in on one practice. And I think that's one of the gifts that like cyclical living and being just aware of our cycle gives us, is that we cannot make that wrong. And we can just be like, okay, I need a little extra support with focus right now because I have so much energy. I need a direction for it. And I'm sure being a mom, like you've had to learn that, like how to like really like hone in the energy on like this is what we're focusing on now.
Yeah, definitely. And and it's I find it challenging sometimes because obviously the kids are in different ages and different phases of their
Uh,
lives. And then I never really mm, thought much about my cycle, which I think,
mm,
might be for a lot of women as well, because we don't really get to know our bodies until maybe like a later stage. It's not really that we get it to know like at school, or like maybe our moms don't really like tell us a lot about it. But yeah, I'm obviously in a sort of a different phase every single week or like every couple of days, and the kids are in a different sort of like energy phase. So it's definitely sometimes hard to challenge, yeah. Hard
wow.
to
Yeah.
maneuver around.
Yeah, totally. It is interesting to think about that too. Yeah, like kids at different ages. And I know, yeah, it's an interesting topic to think about, like how to still live cyclically while maintaining the like responsibilities of motherhood.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate what some of my teachers, Nancy Lucina and Kristen Hauser, have shared, is like bringing, Nancy says she brings her whole family into her cycle, where it's like everyone is kind of in a bit more of like a restful state when she's bleeding. And then when she's closer to ovulation, like in the end of her follicular energy, getting closer to ovulation, that's when they're like really going out and doing stuff as a family. And I think it's cool to think about like how we can really make that work in family life. And I'm not a mom, so I don't know, but that's just what I've heard from women who are mothers and are trying to make that happen for themselves.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, like now after the third, I feel a lot more the phases of the cycle. So
Mm,
like when I'm on my period, that I feel a lot more drawn, like that I feel a lot more tired.
yeah.
A lot more than before I had the kids. Before I had the kids, I would just power through and do my yoga and do, like I knew that if you do your yoga, it should be gentle when you're on your period and no inversions. But I was just like, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, power through, which actually like defeats the whole purpose of like looking after your body, when you're in that phase. Whereas
Yeah.
now I can really sort of feel and relate to my body a lot more when after I've had the kids and like and see my cycle. Even though I've never really tracked it as such, I'm really, I don't want to say the word bad because there's not really like a wrong or a right way, I think, of like, keeping track of like your cycle. So and I would never really note it down, maybe just every now and then. I just let it happen. So one day, one day it's like, oh, I think I'm almost on my period, and like 2 days later, I've got my period. So I just I just look at like how my discharge is. I just look at my mood. I just look at my belly. So I do think like I'm feeling it more in my body and the way how I am with my kids as well. But yeah, not
Yeah.
necessarily like keeping track on it as such.
Yeah. Well, it's cool to hear that because it makes me wonder, do you think that just like having, I think this is the case for some women, so I'm curious if this is how it feels for you, that having children kind of brought you into your body in a way that you weren't before, like connected you with your womb and sort of this yeah, this like creation energy that is in our cycle. And so, yeah, like I'm curious if that's how it felt for you or if there was another reason you feel like you were more aware of your energy levels.
Yeah. So what I definitely notice if in terms of like energy levels is that uh as much as I have that down phase when I have my period, I do feel also like when I'm on fire and vibrant and excited, like I really
Mm,
have noticed like a much more of a difference than what it was before. And now that you've asked a question and I sort of like reflect back on it, I do think I am more connected to my womb. And I
mm,
think it's got to do with a couple of different things. With my first one, I was connected already a little bit more towards my body, like really wanting to look after my body. And with the second one, working with my mind and my body on creating like an ecstatic or orgasmic birth. And with the third one, I wanted to slow down more, and I wanted to, that's also like when I've done like womb steaming after the birth only once, but it's been on my mind and on the list already to bring it more into practice, but just when everything calms down a little bit more. And my youngest one is a little bit older, but that has definitely um given me more connection with my body. Yeah, for sure.
mm. I love that. Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense too, right? Because it's like you can't ignore what your womb is doing when you're pregnant. Like it would be very hard to
Yeah.
ignore amazing changes and creation that's happening within you. And so it's cool because I think it's like pregnancy is this big expansion. And then in your postpartum, you get to integrate that. And anyways, I know we're going to talk about your pregnancies and postpartums in a minute, but let me backtrack a little. And I would love to ask you about your first bleed.
Yeah, so my first bleed was when I was 14.
Mm.
And in my family, you know, like we're very open about talking about menstruation, the menstrual cycle, talking about intercourse and all these type of things. So my
Mm.
mom has always been very open about it. And so yeah, I
That's
was
like a
for
pretty European thing, right? To be open about like
yeah.
sexuality. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've heard before as well, especially the Dutch, where basically where I'm from. So yeah. Yeah. I think it was also not really like a topic to shy away from, or you know, like it was pretty much like open, but more on I don't want to say medical way, but more not as in a feminine way, you know, like really the
Mm.
caring and all these type of things, but open about, yeah, this is happening, and also not shying it away from for the boys or the men, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So like they are aware, you know, they don't have to be shy about it or like be about it, that they think
Wow,
like,
that's
"Ugh,
great.
yucky," you know? No,
Yeah.
like
Great.
it's just there, and you know, that's just what women go through, and you know, like it's yeah, part of life.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was 14, I had my first period. And I knew that it was coming up a little bit because I had a little bit of like discharge that was a different color. And I was like, I think my period is coming. And so I remember placing a pad in my underwear, and then I could feel it coming down at one point, and I was like, this is not fun. I was like, this feels weird, like, and it felt thick, you know, and I was like, people
Yeah.
can see I'm wearing a pad, you know, like it was just like,
Yeah.
nah, this is not it. So I remember really well that the next day I used a tampon, and I was like, that's my go-to for now. So I was like, that's it. And I actually had tried already like a tampon before, so I knew how it
Oh,
felt
wow.
like. So I wasn't really scared of using it or anything. I just
Uh,
tried it out before, just out of curiosity of like how to insert it and how to, yeah, basically how to use it and how it would feel. And
oh.
then yeah, so since that time I had used mainly sort of like tampons until maybe like around 6 to 8 years ago. Then I
Mm.
started to use more like the cup. And now it's just very different. So I either use a pad, a cup, or a tampon, depending on how I feel.
Yeah.
Sometimes none of it feels right. And sometimes one of them feels right. So I'm just like, I just go with the flow.
Yeah,
The
you're
flow
just
is the
trusting your
flow.
body.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, it's so cool. I love that you like it just feels like you were very prepared for your first period. Like like what I'm hearing is there was just like so much yeah, like it was just so easeful. Like you like felt like it was coming. You knew it was going to come. It wasn't a shock. You felt it coming down. You were like, I don't like this pad. Okay, I'm going to try a tampon. I already know how to use the tampon because I'm prepared for that. Like, you were just so well
Yeah.
prepared, and I love that. Like I don't often hear a story like that. It's more often like women are like, what's this or what's happening, or they know what it is, but they're still freaked out and they don't know what to do. And I just, I think it's a testament to perhaps the culture you grew up in and your family culture that you were just like very well prepared. And I love that. Like, what a beautiful imprint to have. Even if you didn't
Yeah.
like it much, like you knew what to expect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I sort of like had a vision of how it could be. I think because I have been talking about it with my mom and she's been so open about it. She also said like, because maybe I made a face or like a comment of like, ew, blood, you know? And then
Mm.
she's like, yeah, but it's coming from inside your body. It's clean blood. Like there's nothing dirty about it, you know? Like it's just you, you know? So I think that's sort of like, yeah, just sort of, how do I say that? Basic type of natural. way of thinking about how your period flows and how your body works. It's just the way it is. And I think, you know, like just the fact that she said to me like, but it's clean, you know, it's good,
Wow.
it's fine. And I say that to my kids as well, because sometimes they come with me into the bathroom and they're like, Mommy, what's that? Not anymore now, but like in the beginning, and they were like, Mommy, what's that? And I was like, yeah, I'm on my period, it's just blood. Oh, I said, but it's clean, it's all good, you know, like it's good. And now they're like, oh, Mommy, you're on your period. Should I get a pad for you? And I'm like, oh, yeah, thank you. Mommy, can I stick it in your underwear? I'm like, yeah, okay, fine.
Sweet and wholesome. Oh my gosh, your kids are
Yeah.
gonna grow up with such a good imprint of what it means to be a woman who bleeds. And like, I mean, that's just, yeah, that's just incredible. And how to support the women who bleed in their lives, you know? And I love too that your mom just said to you, like, oh, it's clean. Like that is so amazing because so many of us grow up with imprints that it's dirty for whatever reason. And like you even felt
Yeah.
that for, right? Like that we kind of pick that up. And so to have like this is something I share all the time is I think it's so important to have a caregiver who like holds the space for you and models that like this is not something to be ashamed of because getting your first period is a really big energy to hold. And when we're girls, like we're not big enough to hold it. And so we need someone bigger than us to help us hold that energy. And your mom, just by saying like it's clean, like that, I'm sure that created some safety for you and your body. And I just think that's so amazing.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think that's you worded it very well, like to hold the space, the energy, just and also to make it simple for me, you know? Because
Yeah.
as you're a teenager at such an age, so many things are changing, right? And I think maybe
Yeah.
for me it might have been a little bit more easier as well because I was 14. I wasn't like 11 or
Mhm.
12, you know,
Yeah.
like where it's you're coming literally out of like the childhood. Like I was like yeah, a teenager. So I think
Yeah.
the in those type of years, like when you're a little bit older like that, I think that might have make a difference as well,
Yeah.
which I think is yeah, might make it a bit easier as well. But yeah, it's that
Mm.
was like beautifully worded it beautifully, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right too. Like 14 is definitely a different maturity level than say 11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. So what were those like the rest of those like teenage years like? Did you just continue? Did you ever have like any birth control, any pains or like yeah, like what were those early cycling years like for you?
Very easy from what I can remember. I had never really like
I'm not
uh
surprised.
yeah, I'd never really had any sort of like heavy cramping or heavy bleeding. I think I was bleeding also maybe for like 4, 5 days. I have never really leaked through much as well, like, you know, when you're in school or when you're doing sports or something like that. So I'd never, not majorly at least, you know, like maybe, yeah, the odd spots here or there, but not majorly. So from what I can remember, it was just, yeah, pretty easygoing and pretty sort of like free flowing. And then
Mm,
I did go onto birth control. I met my husband when we were 17. And so
wow.
first we just used, yeah. So first we just used
Aw.
like rubbers. And then at one time I did freak out. I was like, Mom, I might be pregnant. She's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, maybe. And she's like, well, why don't we just get the morning after pill? So I did. And then after that, we were like, you know what? Maybe we go for like anti-conception. So
Mm,
I went for the pill. I think maybe I was like 18 or just over 18, I would say. Yeah.
mm,
And even then, I know that they say you can have like issues with that, but I have never really noticed like a huge amount of issues. I've never really had like problems with my skin or weight gain or weight loss, or
mm.
from what I remember, also not really like mood swings and stuff. But maybe my parents think differently about that. But but from what I think, I was like I think, pretty easygoing. Yeah.
Wow. How long were you on um the birth control?
I knew that question was coming, so I was like quickly thinking in my mind. Um, so I was on the pill until I was, let me quickly think. I think until 23.
Mm,
And when I was 23, we were going to travel.
mm.
And so I went from the pill to the Mirena to the coil. And at
Okay.
the time, I actually had problems with Candida. And
Mm,
so I asked the gynecologist, is it okay to go from the pill to the Mirena because it still has hormones in it? She's like, yeah, yeah, fine, it's fine, it's fine. And then at that time already, I was like, it doesn't sit well with me, but I re didn't
mhm.
really know what else to do.
Yeah.
And I thought the Candida will leave my body, and it didn't. And so,
Mm,
yeah, I removed it around, I would say maybe 2.5 to 3 years later. So I still had it in me for quite some time, and it never really sat right with me.
yeah. A lot of women say that like it just doesn't, and it's like kind of when you actually think about it, it's like, well, of course, like having a foreign object always up in your cervix, like is not going to sit right with us. But then we get so conditioned by the sort of medical paradigm or like the cultural idea that like that is normal that we try to bypass like what our body's actually speaking to us, which is happens in so many realms of being a woman. But yeah, it's interesting that I think you had that sense of like something's not right, but you tried to sort of push through anyways.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
literally pushed through, literally pushed through because I had a lot of issues with the Candida and I was
Mm,
doing diets and I first went to the medical side of things because that's um even though like in Holland we were, like quite open about talking about period and intercourse and all these type of things. We rarely went to the doctor, but if there would be something, we would go to the doctor. So it was never really like a naturopath or a homeopath. It was
yeah.
either like resting at home with soup and water, or you would go to the doctor. So, um, and so I just went the medical route to get rid of this candida thing, and it just didn't work. And then medicine, and then eventually I stepped onto Chinese medicine and
Oh,
herbalism
wow.
and naturalism. Yeah, so I went onto that route. Yeah,
And
yeah.
that helped you heal.
It helped me heal, but it took a long, long time. The diets didn't do anything for me. So
Yeah.
I think what had happened, so I had a couple of shots in 2012 because we were going on
Mm,
holiday to Kenya and they said, oh, you need to get your shots done, blah, blah, blah. And so then I didn't really think anything of it. And then a couple of months later, I had cystitis. So I took a course of antibiotics. And after that course of antibiotics, which I had cystitis and antibiotics like a couple of times, throughout my teenage years. And then the candida came. And this was a first. I had never had this issue before. And it
oh,
would just not leave my body. And I think at first, I thought it was always like the antibiotics that was the course of it. But later on, when I found out, when I went onto the natural route, and also I went into when I felt pregnant, I looked back and I was like, okay, it was the shots that actually were there initially, and then it was just sort of like an aftermath with the cystitis and antibiotics. And yeah, so it took a long time before it left my body. Yeah,
oh,
a
yeah.
long, long time.
Yeah, I find with the candida thing, like the diets don't often do a lot, unfortunately.
No,
People think they need to like cut all this stuff out of their diet, and it's usually like not the route to healing.
no. I
Yeah.
had blueberries and strawberries as like Christmas treat. I can tell you it's not fun.
That's not like the root of it. The root of it isn't like you're having too much sugar. Like the root of it is different. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting one. And I do think like the TCM stuff was probably pretty helpful because that does address like underlying common patterns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. So
And then,
go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I actually wanted to maybe skip a little bit again, but like, so what I wanted to say was, as I fell pregnant, I still had some of the candida, and sometimes it was like
Mm.
24/7 for like days on end, like
Wow.
weeks on end, like it was no joke. And so when I did fall pregnant, actually the candida started to calm down, and then
Ah,
when I was breastfeeding, it was more or less gone. And then when I sort of like the breastfeeding sort of like when it began to be quieter, not as frequent, it would come back. And now with my third one, touch wood, it hasn't been back, but I'm still breastfeeding, so I might continue until she's like, I don't know how old.
well, you know what? That's so amazing. What I love about that, and I was even thinking about this earlier when you were sharing like how your pregnancies helped you get more confident and like in tune with your womb and your body, is that often I think pregnancy and postpartum, um, they actually can heal stuff like that, like being pregnant and going through like an intact, healthy postpartum. In Chinese medicine, they call it like a golden opportunity, right? When you're in your postpartum, an opportunity to heal. And so I actually think like these long-standing issues, especially issues that have to do with our yoni, with our womb, like these things like can actually be healed by the miraculous thing that is pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
Yeah, absolutely. I do 100% agree with that because it's because the healing is um or the healing or maybe just changing of the
Mm,
body, but also the
yeah.
mindset.
Mm,
So, because I think initially the cause of the candida was more like of foreign stuff in my body, right? And then because I was like stressing about it and doing so much research and then doing the diets, and so my body was under constant stress and with the cortisol like being really high. So that's also feeding your body because that
yeah.
holds sugar as well. So all this had like an effect. And then when you're pregnant, you're going to change. You're really stepping in from like the maiden to the mother, right? So you're
Mm,
really changing. And so with that, your body is changing. With that, your mind is changing. With that, you have a different focus as well. So my focus, instead of me focusing on trying to heal my body and being like maybe quite obsessive about it, of trying to get rid of it, I sort of had to let that go because I had to look after like a little baby.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. I so feel that. Again, like I'm not a mom yet. However, I do feel this like shifting in my life. I'm 28 and I started my Saturn return, which is like, one of my teachers, Nancy, says that that's kind of when women shift from, I would call it like, I've had different guests on my podcast who also aren't yet mothers, but they're like, getting older, and they call it more
Mm,
maternal maiden or the mature maiden or like something like that, where you're not a mother but you're not in that like sort of wounded, not sure what she's
pre-mated.
doing in life maiden phase. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've had this thought for about a year since I turned 28. I'm almost 29, and since I turned 28, where I was like, my focus in life, it's so nice to start to focus less on everything about me, like all about my own healing and what I need and my own growth. And like, of course, that stuff is so important and it's always going to be a part of life. But I think the gift that motherhood, and maturing, but motherhood very specifically and viscerally gives women is you have to let go of the perfection of the stuff with yourself and focus on someone else. And the beautiful thing is, naturally, when you start to focus on serving your children, or serving your family or whatever you're in service to, like you become fulfilled, and that helps you be the healthiest and happiest version of yourself. And so I love that you said that.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So you start to giggle again
I
because I
know.
wanted to say something like about what you were saying, and then I was like, yeah, what I'm actually going to say. So yeah, I just giggled.
We can giggle as much as we need to in this phase of the cycle.
I was with my grandma this summer, and she had like a half sister, and then she was just like, every time when we see each other, we just only have this sentence, and they just start giggling. So I was like, brilliant. If I'm gonna be in my menopause, I'll just want to be giggling all the time.
Absolutely. You know what? I love that. I love that about friends. I always say like the girlfriend energy is so important when you like get together with your girlfriends and you just laugh about the stupidest things. It reminds me of like being a girl in school and like you look at each other and you laugh and then you can't stop laughing and then the teacher's like looking at you but you just can't stop the laughing fit.
Yeah,
It's just such a
exactly.
girl thing.
Start to go thing. And clearly, like my grandma's just like, it will never stop. So yeah, that's good.
That I love that so much. Oh gosh. Yeah. So I want to hear more about your pregnancies and your birth experiences because it seems like those have really been like big I mean, of course they're big initiations for anyone, but it seems like this has very specifically been like your path is like through your birth experiences. And so you were talking a little bit about your first pregnancy. When was that? Because I mean, you met your husband when you were 17. So when did you all decide to start having children?
So I decided that I wanted to have children already in high school because I read a note this summer as well when I was back home that I said, in 5 years, it didn't happen in 5 years, but in 5 years, I would have a loving husband and 3 children. So I
Oh,
have no idea that I anymore that I had written it down, but it was.
wow.
So I fell pregnant when I was 29, but
Mm,
I found out I was pregnant 4 days after I turned 30. And I was like, really? I was like in shock. I was like, how did this happen?
really?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to be a mom. I knew that, but I think being in Dubai and traveling so much and really like loving life at that time, I was like, I can't travel anymore and my body is going to change. And my husband
Yeah.
was over the moon. He was just so incredibly happy. I was like, but your body is not going to change. So yeah, it
Yeah,
took me a while.
to navigate, you know, like that's the like what people call like the death of the maiden because the maiden is like, you know, the like it's about her external appearance and her free life and the travel and it's a big thing to be like, "Oh my God, everything is changing."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now the travel we kept on doing that, so that was amazing.
that's great.
But I was not necessarily sad, but I was going through a process of accepting that I was pregnant and that my body was going to change. And also, yeah, grieving a little bit of like, I remember saying to my husband, yeah, we will never be again the two of us.
Yeah.
It will be now the three of us. And obviously, I'm so happy that my kids are here and stuff like that. But it it did it it did needed I needed to have that time to change my mindset and shift gear and really be responsible. I'm a very responsible person, which in maybe some people's eye it's good. With me, I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship about it. Uh, to be responsible is not always fun. Um,
Yeah, I get
but
that.
yeah. So and then yeah, I just needed to have like acceptance and go through a period of like grieving of the old me,
Yeah.
stepping away and then becoming a mom. Yeah.
Well, it's so beautiful that you gave yourself that opportunity because I think, you know, it's It almost reminds me too, like our cycles mirror our life cycles, like our menstrual cycles mirror our life cycles in a mini way. And I, some of my biggest work is like sharing with women there's nothing wrong with them when they move from one phase to the next and feel different, and to hold space for
Mhm.
that transition. And, it's an even bigger transition, of course, when you're moving from maiden to mother in your larger life cycle. And I think a lot of women kind of push it down. They're like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, or I should be grateful to be a mom or whatever. And maybe some of that for you still came up, but I love that you gave yourself an opportunity to like keep traveling and like keep the parts of your life that felt good, but still like give space for like, yeah, things are changing and I want to change, because I'm going to be a mother and I'm going to be responsible. And yeah, to have that grieving time, because it is the death of one version of you and the birth of another. And I think that grieving probably gave you a lot of space to find like more acceptance and excitement to be a mom. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, definitely. And I was also not shy about it to speak openly about
Mm,
it. So when I was in the salon, so working as a hairstylist in Dubai and only with women, it's a women's salon only. So I speak with women about these topics all the time. And I remember speaking about it very openly of saying like, I'm pregnant and I'm happy, but I'm also so like sad and like grieving that, I'm not gonna be me anymore. Just me. And I think maybe like being open about it, I maybe have lost a client or two.
wow.
It's- yeah, and in a way, I think like maybe I shouldn't have been talking about it. And in another way, I'm like, but I think it's also for other women, maybe like inviting to speak up about it, that it
Uh,
is okay to feel sad or grieving. And I think I learned later on, I learned from this client who then after a year or so she came back to me and she they were going through IVF and it wasn't working. So I understand why she was sort of like sad about it. But
mm,
yeah, it was just also like an outlet of like, yeah, you know, I have to speak up about it because that's just, we have to go through it and it's our emotions. It's not something, yeah, we can suppress it, but that will come back in different ways. Like I always think that we have to just work through it and then sort of you can release it and let go of it. And if you hold on to it, I think it has an impact on the birth as well, because
mm,
that's that's what I do with my clients, is that when you have certain thoughts that are holding you back, how can you open to birth? So for me,
wow.
the subconscious mind is very powerful, right? So for a mom to open and to you're opening, your body is literally opening, but
Yeah.
you also have to let it open with your energy, because otherwise, and your thoughts, because otherwise if there's anything sort of like blocking that, it the birth, I believe, might be a little bit more challenging.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's such a big thing. It's such a big thing to recognize that like birth requires you to like fully surrender to the experience. And if you have those reservations and you haven't addressed them before birth, it's going to be really hard if they come up during the birth, and you're going to have to work through it in a much more challenging time than if you had taken the time to like rewire your subconscious beliefs before.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was your first birth like?
So my first birth was pretty quick for a first birth. So around like in the evening, like late evening, I felt like little tickles in my tummy, just like sort of like butterfly
Oh,
flutters. And I said, maybe we should go to bed and like sleep because, maybe something will happen. And so like in the early morning around maybe 3-ish, I felt I couldn't be asleep anymore. So I just took a shower and then around maybe like 4 or so, I said to my husband, I think things are starting to shift. So the hospital, unfortunately, it was hospital. I never wanted to give birth in a hospital, but in Dubai, it's not allowed to have um, midwives or
Wow.
doctors at home. So home births are not done unless
Okay.
it's obviously a very quick birth, uh,
Yeah.
aka like a free birth.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it went like around 6 o'clock. We went to the hospital in the morning, and then 6:15 we arrived there, and at 8:30 she was born.
Wow.
So it went really fast, yeah.
Very
Yeah,
fast.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. And
yeah.
what did you feel during the birth? Did you have some fears? Did you feel confident? Like what were your feelings?
I was pretty confident. I'm the eldest of six.
Mm,
And after I sort of had accepted, like that I was becoming a mom, which was maybe around the 20-week um, mark of the pregnancy, I went full in on like educating myself on hypnobirthing and my body and how the birth could be and what I wanted. And obviously, having been already on more the natural route, I was looking for an OB that was more, in a natural way. I knew from a lot of my clients in the salon there were a lot of interventions. So you really had to stick up for yourself, something that you don't want to do when you're in your birth bubble, like when
yeah.
birth is happening. And so I was ready and prepared. And so I think ready and prepared in the sense that me and my husband were able to speak up. Like we gathered a lot of knowledge to make sure that this was going to be a natural birth
Mm.
and no C-section, like no interventions or pushes into like C-section and stuff. I had a doula as well. She was sort of my insurance also, like for not going into the C-section route.
Yes.
Um, so I actually at one point I remember I was like in the bath and I could feel my head swaying from like left to right and feeling like I've never really done any drugs. So I can't relate to anything, but I was like, I feel like I'm high. Like, so I know that all my, love hormones, my oxytocin and serotonins and dopamines, like they were like so high that I was like, whew, I was a bit like whoopee. Yeah. That was actually pretty good. And then I do remember that at one stage I was saying like, oh, how much longer? Because I didn't feel pain. I've never really felt pain in my births. Like with my
Oh,
first one, I felt pressure around the
okay.
tailbone. So around my tailbone, I felt pressure, but I've never really felt pain. And
Wow.
so, yeah, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like even hard for me to wrap my head around that. Like I've had not very many women, like a couple of women tell me that they didn't experience what they would perceive as pain during their birth. And it's just really hard for me to wrap my head around that. I'm like, do you just have a different idea of what pain is? Or like what I don't know. I wonder if what do you think that is? Like why?
Yeah. So because, like with the birth course that I have, like I have given it a lot of thought as well. So
Yeah,
obviously everybody perceives pain in a different way.
yeah.
And but what I say is that the higher your love hormones, the oxytocin, dopamine, serotonins, the higher they go, the more of a natural pain relief it is. So those love hormones are your natural epidural. But what I also say is that when you have like the adrenaline and cortisol, and if the surroundings mindset, like there's a lot of things that come into play to have like a pain-free birth, which, is possible. If those hormones are coming up, and I call them a little bit more like the male hormones, and they come up like pretty quick, like
Mm.
if there is like you might think you feel safe in a hospital, like, oh yeah, I'm going to a hospital, I feel safe. You might think that with your brain, but your body says otherwise. And if you don't
Yeah.
follow your intuition, then, it can go like a different route. And so your love
Yeah.
hormones are a little bit more your feminine hormones, the ones that are a little bit more shy. They don't come out to play very quickly. So they need a lot more nurturing. Basically, like if you're going onto a date, you have candles, you have your dinner, like soft music. Whereas, like, if you then go into a hospital, or even if you're at home and you have bright lights and a lot of noise and people coming in and out, like, the love hormones are not going to rise. And
Yeah.
therefore, like, you're so much in control of your body. And like what you said earlier, to surrender, you might think that you surrender, but are you really surrendering?
Hmm.
Are you holding on to your breath? Do you think you're breathing in deeply, but are you really? Like, are you really expanding your lungs, not only at the top of your chest, but also towards the back of your ribs at the
Yeah.
back? Like those type of things are crucial actually in a birth, I would say.
And so do you feel like, I mean, it's interesting. I will say I can kind of understand that, I did work as a doula for a little bit and I've like been in the birth world a bit. And I do see like, how when a woman is able to like let her love hormones flow, then things tend to go more smoothly. And I also
Yeah.
can relate in a very minor way with like, I used to have a lot of menstrual pain when I would try to like keep going and doing things. And then the second I started resting, now I don't describe what I experience as pain. It doesn't mean I don't feel anything. Of course, I'm aware that my womb is doing something, but I describe it more as
Mm.
like sensation versus pain. And so I wonder if
Yeah.
it's like a similar concept in birth is like, of course, there's something happening, you're feeling it, but it's not like you're in this excruciating struggle if you're allowing yourself to, like you said, fully surrender in all of the ways that are crucial too.
Yeah. And it's a very good point that what you're saying. And that's also what I say in my course as well. It's like, it's not that if you have a pain-free birth that it just you blow and then just like as a feather your baby is coming out.
Yeah.
No, you do feel it, like. And the thing is, when you're going through birth, and it doesn't matter if it's your first, second, third, and maybe like afterwards it's becoming even easier, but
Mhm.
what happens is that you're going to feel sensations that you have never, ever, ever experienced before.
Wow.
Your period pains or cramps or sensations that you feel like on a monthly basis could be quite repetitive. They could be quite similar because your body is going through a similar process. But now, when you're pregnant, your body is different from your first pregnancy to your second to your third or your fourth.
Mhm.
And then also the baby is different as well, laying in a different position. Do you get what I mean? You might be
Yeah.
standing in a different position or sitting in a different position, hopefully not laying on your back. So
Yeah.
those type of things like really have a big impact. And to think about it in terms of like sensations rather than, pain, that
Yeah.
is that is definitely a key. And also to embrace those sensations. So, like when you're going through a birth, and I have goosebumps. I can't show you, but I have got
Mhm.
goosebumps now. So when you're in birth, I don't like to say the word labor. Sometimes it comes out, but I don't like it. When you're going through the birth, and then, you know, I always have my hands open, because I think when you clench
Mhm.
it, what happens when you clench, because they sometimes have those birth
Yeah.
combs, right? And you're clenching.
Right.
So to sort of like numb sort of like any pain, or like to redirect sensations, right?
Mhm.
But that gives you tension. Whereas I believe fully that when you open your palms, when you open your jaw, that's very well known. Like when you open your jaw, you relax your jaw, down below is going to relax as well. So
Mhm.
just really sit with those sensations. And if they're going to be intense, a pain-free birth doesn't have to be a silent birth. It's not like bloop. baby comes out. With some women, it happens, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be silent. Your instinctive grounds, like, noises and sounds, they need to come out. And that's
Mm,
also like one thing that I think, don't hold back on that. Like, let it go, and don't feel like any type of sort of like shame around it, because those are when you feel those sensations going through your body, if it's intense, you need to let it out. And if it's coming through sound, then you need to let that go. Don't hold
yeah.
back on it because of what that you're maybe afraid of what other people are thinking.
Mm, yeah, and that's where like a good environment comes into, like an environment that you feel safe to do so and is feels really important.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I believe you should be in an environment where, I mean, some people are into it, other people are not. Like, if you have intercourse, if you have sex, like, you just need to be comfortable with those people seeing you in your full naked body.
yeah,
And if you're not comfortable, birth can like stall or like hold you back a little bit. So
yeah.
yeah, very important to have people around you that you feel fully comfortable with, which is challenging sometimes because you might not have those people around you.
Yeah. Do you think, I'm switching gears a little bit, still related, but do you think
No
that your
problem.
first birth experience is what got, because you were saying earlier that your second birth experience, you were really focused on like orgasmic birth, like a pleasurable
Mm.
birth. Do you feel like your
Yeah.
first experiences kind of like set the stage for you to be like, whoa, is that possible?
Mm, maybe yes, a little bit. Yeah. It During my first pregnancy, I heard about orgasmic birth and I was like, what is that? And I was like, what nonsense. A little bit similar to you, what you were thinking as well. Like it's hard to imagine like that birth can be
Yeah,
pain-free. You've heard about it before, which is already like amazing. That's
yeah.
already one step in the right direction. You're opening up your subconscious mind, your thoughts, like your thinking or your whole being about that is possible. And then with the, yeah, like when I was going through the birth afterwards, I was like, oh, this was actually like piece of cake. I was like on top of the world, with my, I was like, oh, this is good. And then I was like, when I was pregnant with my second one, I was like, why not? Who wants to go through a painful birth if it can be ecstatic and orgasmic? And so then I was like full on, like learning everything I could about having an ecstatic or orgasmic birth.
Ecstatic birth. I love that term. So what did you learn and what did you experience?
So again, it was in a hospital, which I am even more proud of that I had an ecstatic birth than if it would have been a home birth. So basically what I did was really looking after my body, even more so than what I did ever before. So
Mm,
food, I was really focused on my food, so not too much like into the carbs and stuff like that, really like nourishing foods and stuff.
mm.
Uh, no processed foods. But then really looking after my body in the sense of like applying coconut oil on my body every single night and a
Oh.
little bit in the morning because I didn't want my clothes to be stained and stuff. But in the night, I was fully lathered. I was shiny, from like my neck to my knees almost, and and just really connecting with myself in a sensual way, like really,
Yeah.
yeah, really looking after myself. Okay, what do I find pleasurable? How would I feel or how would I touch myself if the birth would be a little bit more stagnant? Because obviously, I knew actually the birth was going to be quick from the moment I was pregnant with my second one, but a client had said, but you just never know. And then obviously that little whisper in my mind was like, yeah, you just never know. But then
Mm.
my other whisper on my other shoulder was like, your birth is going to be quick. And it was. So when you have those like little whispers in your ear of like names or how you think you're going to give birth, or if you have like a flash of like positions that you're going to be in the pregnancy and in the birth. Don't ignore it, because that's the way, how it's going to be. Like
Wow.
that's going to help you. And so, yeah, just really connecting deeply with myself, massaging myself, self-pleasure, and really envisioning of like, okay, if other people will be here, like how would I react or how would I be? And I was
Mm.
really tossing and turning around the fact that I wanted to have a home birth, and I almost had it because we wanted to fly over a midwife from Austria, but because it
Mm.
was with COVID,
Uh,
we scared because, yeah, 4 days after he was born, they closed all the flights.
wow.
So yeah, yeah. And then my doula came over. Again, I had like little flutters. My doula came over. My husband was there, my mom, my daughter. This was at
Mm.
home. And my doula, she did some acupressure, and she asked me, she said, "So tell me when you have a surge." I was like, "Well, right now." She's like, "Really, right now?" I was like, "Yeah." And later on, she told me, it's going to take another 24 hours. So she said, "I'll leave you to it," because I told her upfront, I'm going to have like an orgasmic or ecstatic birth. Like, this is what I'm working towards. And I really chose her because I felt comfortable like explaining this to her, what I wanted.
Mm.
So she left me and my husband to it. And so we had cuddles and kisses and slow dances. And then after 20 minutes, I had this full-on surge of like around 2 minutes long where I just had to breathe through it. And I was like, "We're going to the hospital." He's like, "Really now? Like after this first surge?" "We're going." And and yeah, to make a long story short, because me explaining this is longer than the birth itself. But like from that surge to like him being born, was just like less than half an hour. Um,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so quick.
It was so quick. And I actually thought I was gonna have him in the car, and I was like, okay, my whole ecstatic birth, like wish is, ending up in the bin. But I actually reached the hospital, went into a birth room. I had to stand up for myself.
Mm.
It's like with the midwife. I entered the bath and I was like, you know what? This is my moment. This is it. And the midwife was like, "Can I finish some files like at reception?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And knowing full well that she was, that the baby was going to come, he was going to come when she was away. I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." And I was like, and because I practiced so much of like how I wanted to feel and how I wanted to be as he was emerging and coming earthside, I was able to snap back into my own birth bubble
Wow.
very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is my moment. This is it. And yeah, I just went into my body very quickly again, and just let everything happen. And if my doula wouldn't have taken the pictures and the video of me, I would not have been able to say it so comfortably that I was having an ecstatic birth. Like the smile on my face as he was
Ah,
emerging uh is just incredible. Like it's sometimes I can't even still believe it that I had that experience. Um but yeah, it was, yeah, amazing.
that's so beautiful to just like picture you smiling as your baby's being born. And it's like crazy because that seems shocking because we're not used to that. But it's like that's probably the design. Like it's like the most beautiful moment of your life. All the love hormones are flowing. Like, of course you should be smiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like, when you smile again, like your face is relaxed, right? So and I was
Yeah.
just like in this whole sort of like bubble, and I do 100% believe what you're saying is that we just we are designed to give birth in a different way. And that's
Yeah.
actually what I want to, you know, bring and teach to women. Like it's
Yeah.
possible. Yeah,
So do you think that this kind of birth is possible for every woman?
absolutely. You
Mm.
have the same hormones. I'm no different to you. Do you know what I mean? We have the
Yeah.
same hormones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A
Mm.
100%. But there's different things that come into play, right? It's your body, it's your mind, it's the environment. If those are together, and then it takes two to tango, right? So it's the mom and the baby. So
Yeah.
there's obviously different factors that come into play, but I think 100% pain-free births, ecstatic births are possible for every woman with the right circumstances. 100%.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. Wow, yeah, I just really appreciate you sharing the story. And I especially love like you sharing some of the preparations you did of like, like massaging your body and connecting with your sensuality. And I just think that's so important to be able to know how I often like I see clients in a different capacity. Like I work with women on, healing their hormones and a lot of fertility. And often I see
Mm,
women, I have sort of a traditional Chinese medicine lens. And so I work a lot in the realms of like yin and yang. And so often I have
mm,
women who are like really in their yang energy day to day. And we have to work on bringing them back into their yin energy to support, their estrogen and progesterone, those sex hormones to be optimized. And often that does look like, I recommend things like sitting and massaging your whole body with oil, taking a bath, like connecting with like the pleasure that it is to be in a female body. And so I love that you bring that into the preparation for birth too, because I think, often we just think, oh, the appointments, the checks and all this, but like that connecting with your sensuality and your body and like allowing your body to feel safe. I think that's such a
mm.
key part of birth prep.
Absolutely. So in the 1700s, they have written and noted down already that if a woman doesn't feel safe, and if the birth even has started already, a woman can close up again.
Wow.
So if you don't feel that safety, again, not the thinking safety, but the intuitive safetiness,
Yes.
you can close.
Well,
And you
yeah,
won't.
and that's a key difference between the thinking safety and the intuitive safety because I spent some years as a doula here in California, and sometimes I would have clients who wanted a hospital birth or a birth center birth or whatever, and often when we would leave their home and go to the hospital, their contractions would slow down, like
Yeah.
they would slow down. And it's like you might think, and maybe some women truly do feel safer in the hospital environment, I don't know, but I think often
Mm.
you might think you feel safer because you've been conditioned, like your mind feels safer, but your body, your intuitive self doesn't actually feel safer there. And I think that's what you're speaking to, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 Mm, wow.
Another thing actually that I did as well with all the pregnancies is acupuncture for a
Mm,
quick and smooth birth. And I think that also like massively contributed to like to the birth that I had, like that it been so like easy as well.
wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, you're like keeping like you're keeping yourself open, right? Acupuncture opens channels. Mm,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And your third, what about your third? How was that
Yeah,
one?
my third. So my third, I was fully ready for my free birth. And I had been tossing and thinking about it of like having a doula there because my second one I also had a doula, and my third pregnancy preparation was different to my first and my second one. So I didn't do as much preparation as in caring for myself
Mm.
with two small babies hanging around as well. Um, but I did a lot of mindset work more actually on like finances. So like my
Mm.
mind was like, okay, third baby, finances, la la la. So I did a lot of subconscious mindset work around that. And I was just really ready to have my home birth. And I was like, this is it. Like this most likely will be my last birth because my husband was like, two was good already, three is the max. So I was like, okay, if three is gonna be the max, this is gonna be my home birth. And
Yeah.
so this again also went so quick. So the tickles, the flutters started around like one. And then it sort of continued. I just continued with my day. And then around 6, a friend called. We were having dinner. And I said, well, I think I'm going to call Kevin because I have some surges and, I'm not really sure how he is at work. So I just need to, and traffic as well. So
Yeah.
he came at like 6:35. And then I started to like breathe through my surges around maybe like 7:15.
Mm.
I went into the bath around 10 to 8 and 10 past 8. Around 10 past 8, she was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So again, like super quick. And my husband was there. Both my kids were there, and my mom was there. So my mom, she came over maybe I think right and then a week and a half before she was born. And I said, Mom, I said, depending on how I feel on the day, but it might be a home birth. She's like, yeah, yeah, I thought that already. I was like, yeah, but it, it's just gonna be us. And she's like, yeah, I know.
she had a feeling.
And I was like, so what do you think about that? And she's like, yeah, you can do that. But that's fine. And if anything happens, we just call an ambulance and that's fine. And it's not like now that I'm sharing this, it might sound like that I was doing something that maybe certain people feel like it's irresponsible, but over the sort of like 7 years about pregnancy and all these type of things, I've done so much research about,
Yeah.
pregnancy, birth, free birth, and even with my mom, we were going through all my courses and, like
Aw.
have discussions about birth. And obviously I'm the eldest of 6, and the f- the youngest 4 I have seen being born. My mom, she
Mhm.
also had just like natural birth at home, the
Uh,
last. So yeah, it was just, and then yeah, it just my last birth. We actually saw the video and the other day, and it was beautiful to watch it again. And
mm.
I was like, I'm panting so much. Like I was breathing like a lot. And she's like, yeah, because you just ran a marathon in like 20 minutes.
Exactly. It's so fast.
I was like, yeah, if you see it in that context, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, it
And
makes
then,
sense.
yeah, and then it actually felt like as if I went to the grocery store and then came back. It just felt so natural, so normal, so
Mm.
intuitive, so meant to be, that I didn't feel as ecstatic and on top of the mountain as what I did with my second
Yeah.
one. If I would compare the births together, but I would, it was just there. It was just
Yeah.
natural.
Wow.
It was just part of life, just natural, just, yeah. It was just beautiful.
I love that. And I think I can't remember who said this before, but I've heard someone say that like birth is at the same time the most regular everyday occurrence and the most magical, mystical thing in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
So like I didn't ask you too much about your postpartums. I mean, you've been kind of in pregnancy, birth, postpartum for like 8 years then. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you've just been. So how have you integrated these experiences? Like how are your postpartums? Who have you become from these birth experiences?
So with my first one, I was still very much more as in like I've given birth, and then we're going out and about, and like quite quickly going
Mm,
onto the road and to a restaurant and meeting friends, and so that one was a little bit more, I don't want to say rushed, but I didn't really take a huge amount of care for my body with resting.
mm,
I did do um encapsulation of the placenta, so I had it like prepared for me, and tincture as well. So I took the placenta encapsulation and the tincture. So I did do that, and I did with my daughter. the breastfeeding, and then also elimination communication. So I
Mm.
did those type of things. And then I've actually been breastfeeding for the last 8 years.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, which I had never thought that that would happen. I also started the breastfeeding journey with my first one, thinking of like, okay, let's see like half a year and then a year and then a year and a half and 2 years. And then, she was like three and a half, four. But then by that time they don't drink much. Like it's a
Yeah.
2 minute thing, like every now and then. With my second one, I wanted to do encapsulation again, but the lady, she did something wrong with the placenta, and she's like, "I'm so sorry, I can't give it
Oh,
to you." I was like, "Great."
whoa.
Again, it was like COVID, so it was a very
Right.
stressful period for her, probably. But I
Yeah,
was deeply, deeply saddened by that.
of course.
I, yeah, I could say maybe a little heartbroken.
Yeah,
Um,
I can imagine. That's your placenta.
I know.
Big
It's me.
deal. It's
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I had a lot of rest actually with his birth because it was COVID and it was like lockdown.
Hmm.
So I was resting like all the time, which was really great. Um, breastfeeding. And then with my third one, I deliberately took the time to rest and like had our help and my mom like really looking after me and my husband obviously as well. So a lot of like nourishing food, and really taking it easy. And I used honey and seaweed to look after my labia and to make sure that the swelling was calming down, and which was just miraculously how that's how that worked, the seaweed and the honey. And
That just sounds
yeah.
so nourishing. Like it sounds so nourishing to be putting like seaweed and honey to tend to your vulva. It feels very like, yeah, like natural, primal, nourishing woman.
Yeah, yeah. And like just also like honey has that sort of like the stickiness to it, right? But
Yeah.
it's just caring for yourself again. And also
Yeah.
that is one thing, to be comfortable to apply it, to
Yeah.
be comfortable with your body, to actually apply something that you would normally maybe not apply there, but just to,
Yes.
yeah, just to care, to really take that time to care for yourself. Yeah.
Mhm. It's beautiful. Oh, yeah. Well, I want to ask you, like, who are you now? Like, who have you become in this phase of your life right now?
A busy mom.
Yes.
Who I've become. Okay, let me just have a little think about it.
Hmm.
I've become a woman that's a lot more connected with myself, a lot more thoughtful to how my body is and how beautiful and miraculous actually the female body is, and the changes that we're going through. And in terms of like being a mom with the kids, to be a lot more in the present moment and to figure out that if I say something to them, a yes or a no, or like answering a question, that I really sort of like take a step back and think of like, okay, is this really like the truth, or is this something that is society is whispered in my ear? Do I want them to hear this? Like, I really want to, connect in that moment a lot more to myself. Is it
Yeah.
important? Can something go wrong? No. Okay, why not? Just go ahead. And so like really have that connection with myself, um and taking time to reflect on like how I am actually in the moment, and what I want to say, especially towards the kids and other people around me.
Gosh, that's so beautiful. It's such an important thing to be doing. And I mean, I love it too, like being like, is this true? Is this how I want them to be imprinted? Because it's the same as, you've shown up for your births, is like, what are these imprints that I've picked up and are they true? and what's actually possible. And I think that's just such a beautiful lesson to lead your family with.
Yeah, because not everything that we've been taught is true, right?
Oh yeah.
And yeah. And I think that's also one of the things that I wanted to not necessarily prove, but I wanted my birth to be different to the stories that I've heard before. So instead of hearing the births that were not very pleasant, instead of like fearing it, I was actually, it fueled me to do it in a different way. And yeah, that actually, I'm so happy that I was able to succeed that.
Yeah. Wow. I've just absolutely loved hearing your stories. Yeah, it's really inspiring. And I've also learned so much from you. And I'm sure the women listening can relate in their own ways and also be inspired by what you've walked through. You've shared so much wisdom already, but I always ask the guests one final question, which is if there's a piece of womb wisdom that you'd like to leave the women listening, what might that be?
I would say something that I had reflected on already before, and that is like trust your instinct. Those little flashes, that are coming in your dreams or in your mind, like really when you take that time to look after yourself, or when you take that moment of stillness that you have throughout the day, just take a step back and breathe. Your breath is so powerful as well during your birth, and that
Yeah.
is what you carry with you, and it's also actually what you can pass on to your baby. So if you breathe really deeply when you're pregnant, like that will become an anchor for your baby. So let's say, for example, if you later on have like a little stressful moment throughout the day, or your baby is upset, and you really start to breathe in that way, your baby will react and will instantly calm down. And you will have it always
Mm,
with you, right?
mm,
Doll you might lose, or it might not be the same, like, or a little snuggly blanket. You might have forgotten it, but your breath, you will always be there with your baby. And I think, yeah, that might be a good womb wisdom.
it is. That's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, Yvonne, I know women are going to want to find out more about you and where they can find you and these offerings you've shared a little bit about. So if you want to just give us a rundown of that, I would love it.
Yeah. So you can find me on my Instagram, which is Your Blissful Birth. And then I also have a website where I share my course, and a meditation is coming up soon. So that is yourblissfulbirthjourney.com. And on there, there's also a freebie of like a mini series meditations. So they're just
Mhm.
about up to like 4 or 5 minutes long. So if you just had like a little bit more of a busier moment, but you just want to ground yourself, and just look after your breath a little bit more, your mindset, that you can just listen to that for just a couple of minutes. So I have that on there as well. And then, yeah, and then I have my Blissful Birth course, where I take women through the pregnancy and how you can prepare yourself to have like a pain-free and hopefully ecstatic or orgasmic birth.
Beautiful, beautiful offerings. Oh, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here, Yvonne. It's been so sweet getting to know you and yeah, just hearing this like beautiful thread of your life all the way from like being prepared for your first bleed to like being well resourced for your births. And I just love all the space you've given yourself to really be intentional. I'm someone who lives my life very intentionally. And so I always appreciate other people who are living their lives with intention. So thank you for sharing and thank you for being a resource to remind women that their birth can be a beautiful, ecstatic experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I absolutely loved it. And I love your questions. It's so needed to have, like a platform and to have these conversations, and for me even also to learn more about, my cycles, and also for my daughters as well now, and for all the other ladies. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing this with us and to ask these questions.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the intention. Mm.
Thank
All
you.
right, love. Thank you. Thank you for tuning into the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast so that it could reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle, in the show notes below. There, you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions, shop the herbal shop, and any group programs that I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.